spoken. He joined the Pat McAfee show just a little while ago, dove into what he's heard from the Steelers, where he is in his decision-making process, and believe me, a lot more. We'll talk about all of it. Welcome to NFL Live. We're so glad you're with us. Jason McCourty is here, and our newest colleague, Peter Schragers, joining us here on the show. Let's go. It's so good to have you.
I'm so happy to be here. Such a fan of this show, such a fan of you, such a fan of Mina, of course, Jason and Adam, but I'm also a fan of Aaron Rodgers for giving us some content to talk about.
Let's go. Yeah,
I had to text him. Go on McAfee. We need to talk about it. That's it. That's right.
Oh, so he texts you back. No. Okay, interesting. So Adam Schefter, as you mentioned, he will be here as well. There he is. Mina Kimes joining us too. And as we learned from Rodgers, he's still a free agent. But we wondered if he would appear on McAfee's show today to announce that he was going to the Steelers or even announce a retirement. That wasn't the case. What he did, however, was provide a good bit of context on where he is at the moment.
I'm open to anything and attached to nothing. So yeah, retirement still could be a possibility. But right now, my focus has been and has been and will continue to be on my personal life. And that's what I've told the coaches. There's still conversations that are being had, and so it's all been very honest lines of communication. I've really appreciated the time I talked to the various teams. I did talk to Brian Daboll and had great conversation with him. Really enjoyed him a lot. I think he's a lot of fun to talk to and has a beautiful football mind. I've talked to Mike Tomlin. He's more than I even thought from afar as far as the type of person that he is. I have a lot of respect for what he's accomplished in the league. There's been a lot of people assuming they have information about me. That's just not true. I've been straight up with these teams from the start about where I was at, starting with the money thing. I told every single one of the teams I talked to, it ain't about the money. I'll play for 10 M's. I don't care. I never once said I need a multi-year deal, $30, $40 million. It was absolute bullshit. I said I'd play for 10.
Okay, as promised, Mina Kimes is here. Adam, we go to you first, though. A lot to unpack there. What was your biggest takeaway from hearing Rodgers speak today?
That this still could go any way in the future. Now, I still think a lot of people would be surprised if ultimately Aaron Rodgers ended his football career now and allowed last season to be his last NFL taste. I don't think that's the way he would want to go out. I think a lot of people don't think that's the way he would want to go out. But he left open any number of possibilities here. And look, it's not like the Steelers can turn away from Aaron Rodgers and turn to somebody else. Aaron Rodgers gets added time to wait out the Minnesota Vikings if that's what he wants. And he made it very clear also that he's dealing with some significant personal challenges to friends of his or people that he cares about that enter into his decision. So he doesn't sound like he's in any rush right now, despite the fact that the Steelers' offseason program begins next week, despite that the NFL draft starts 1 week from tonight. Aaron Rodgers is on his own timeline, not anybody else's.
I mean, Aaron Rodgers is 41 years old. Last year, he finished bottom 10 in QBR, yards per 10, completion percentage over expected, what have you. I don't think anyone really believed he was going to command some giant salary or a robust market per se. And I think for the Steelers, while he is perfectly entitled to take his time to make a choice, mentally, what you do in this draft should have nothing to do with whether or not Aaron Rodgers joins your football team. If you like one of the quarterbacks, you draft them. I think this is a team that is well situated for a rookie quarterback, which is something we don't say very often, but the offensive line, the skill players are in good place. You got a good coaching staff, obviously, good defense. So you go into this draft without Aaron Rodgers impacting the process, because who knows how long this thing's going to take with him.
I look at this almost from two different vantage points. As a media member, as a fan of the game, I was hoping to get Rodgers on McAfee today and find out that he was going to the Steelers, retirement, something just to get answers. But as a former player, I look at it as Rodgers right now is in the driver's seat. He said it. He doesn't owe the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Minnesota Vikings, us as fans. He doesn't owe anyone anything. He has the right to wait till he knows for sure what he wants to do with his future. when you listen to him, it didn't sound like for sure he knows that he wants to play football this upcoming season. So for the Pittsburgh Steelers, like Mina said, it doesn't change their draft standpoint, but at some point you have to look at each other. And if he told every team this that was interested, I'm sure some moved on, some, like the Pittsburgh Steelers, have stuck around. But you got to at some point look at each other and say, hey, as a football team, as a franchise, we may have to just say, hey, we're cutting ties, we're moving forward with what we have right now.
This is who you're dancing with. The second day of free agency, there were erroneous reports out there, not by anyone on this show or in this network, saying we should know by the end of Wednesday where Rodgers is going. And I was on Good Morning Football on NFL Network. I went, you know that? Because the Aaron Rodgers I know is going to do it to the beat of his own drum, and he'll do it when he wants. And here we are, more than 6 weeks later, and we're still talking about where Rodgers is going to go. And almost moreover, I was intrigued by what he had to say about the way the Jet situation went down, that he flew his own play. He got out there on himself, thought he was going to have an open conversation and have a dialogue, and Aaron Glenn abruptly was like, so we're moving on, dude. Like, and that was that, and that caught him by surprise. So for Rodgers to not give us the answer we want, look, if he was ever going to do this, it would have been at Pat McAfee's big night out in Pittsburgh, and there was going to be a red carpet, and he and Sidney Crosby were going to come out arm in arm and do headbutts with Paul Skeens. It didn't happen. They start their, camp soon, like Monday, like it opened, like
Right.
I think they should at least have thought going into this process that they would have an answer by now. They are dancing with the partner that they chose to dance with. This was never going to be on their schedule, and I know that might be very uncomfortable for fans of the NFL.
Yeah, regarding the Jets side of things, I agree with Peter. I found that pretty intriguing that he was insulted, frankly, by how Aaron Glenn handled things. If I'm a Jets fan, I'm thrilled to hear that your new head coach, the new front office, they're decisive, right? There's no messing around. I mean, Aaron Rodgers basically helped run the franchise last 2 years. We saw how that worked out. Now you've got a new head coach in who's wiping the slate clean, who's being very clear and direct. I think that's a good thing, frankly. So just on the Jets side of things, I would be actually encouraged by that.
Just for context here, it's worth reminding, I saw this today, Aaron Rodgers hasn't thrown a playoff touchdown since January 24th of 2021. That's 1,544 days ago, for anyone counting. And just for context about what we're about to talk about, Shedeur Sanders had just finished up his last season at Trinity Christian School in Cedar Hill, Texas. He wasn't even at Jackson State yet. That's just how long ago all of this happened. But either way, along the Shedeur lines. Okay, we're just 1 week away from the NFL draft. The Giants and their third overall pick are a massive part of the conversation, as this could go many ways. The Giants doing a private workout with Shedeur in Boulder today. It was previously scheduled, right? They'll do the same with Alabama quarterback Jalen Milroe, Louisville quarterback Tyler Shough before the draft. And this offseason, the Giants signed veteran quarterbacks Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston. They brought back Tommy DeVito on a one-year deal. Big Blue, though, desperate need of production from that position, as they had just 15 touchdown passes last season, the fewest in the NFL. Peter, what are you hearing about the Giants' interest in taking Shedeur at number 3 as we all try to figure this out?
Yeah, look, I think at the signing of Jameis Winston followed by Russell Wilson, there are a lot of people who rolled their eyes and said, neither one of those guys can be your long-term answer. This is just, what are you doing? But how much better off are the Giants right now knowing they have Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston than sitting on their hands and waiting for an Aaron Rodgers and saying, okay, well, now we have to draft somebody. I think Joe Shane laid it out very clearly yesterday at his press conference, saying we do not have to do anything at quarterback. We have 2 viable options. That said, and I think a lot of the reporting has been really solid on this, there has been a ton of interest in Shedeur Sanders from the Giants camp. They sent 13 different people to his pro day. They have been to Shedeur Sanders practices. That's Joe Shane. Multiple games. When he came to New Jersey for his visit, they took him out to dinner, which they did not do with everybody. I think the Giants are uncovering every stone. Now, the workout today, I think a lot of it was crossing T's and dotting I's, but I would be shocked if he was the 3rd overall pick. I think this is more if he falls to a point where we want to trade back in. Because remember, there is an opportunity cost here. You take Shedeur Sanders at 3, that means you're not taking Abdul Carter and you're not taking Travis Hunter. And I don't know if the Giants can afford to do that with where their roster's at.
And I look at just the private workers that they're going to be doing, Jalen Milroe, Tyler Shough. When you look at these other quarterbacks that are in the draft, for the New York Giants, you have Shedeur Sanders ceiling at a certain point. Where do these other guys ceiling rise? Do you look at a Jalen Milroe and say, hey, if everything clicks, we think he can maybe be above a Shedeur Sanders? Do you look at kind of them all being similar? Because if you do, with that 3rd overall pick, to your point, Schragers, you can't draft him there. you have to try to possibly move up in the first round at the end to get a Jackson Dart, to get a Tyler Shuck, if those guys are available. For the Shedeur Sanders side of it, I look at it at possibly 9 for him with the New Orleans Saints, a team that is in dire need of a quarterback with everything that is going on with Derek Carr. But if you're the New York Giants, obviously you know for Joe Shane and Brian Dable, it's going to be a tough year to convince John Mara that you are the guys. Get a sure thing at 3 and see what you can do there, and then maybe try to get your quarterback.
Yeah, I think for the Giants, they're considering 3 things, really. One, who are the players available? You guys have alluded to this. Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter, most folks think are the 2 best players in the draft. So those are the players you're choosing between, the sure things, as Jason talked about. And then you're looking, where are we as a franchise? I mentioned earlier in the show that I thought the Pittsburgh Steelers were ready for a young quarterback. Candidly, I don't quite feel that way about New York. There are still other holes on this roster, offensive line, skill players, etc. Now, if the quarterback available to you is so good, it doesn't matter. We look at New England. That was a team that wasn't ready, but no one in that building regrets taking Drake May last year. Obviously the case with Washington as well. I don't think Shedeur Sanders is that type of quarterback where even if the team's not ready, you still take him. So I'm going to agree with you guys. I think they're going to wait and either take a different quarterback later in the round or, as Peter said, potentially trade back up for Shedeur.
Look, I think most people believe they're going to wait. But I do want to remind you, he does have the pedigree. He is Mel Kiper Jr.'s top-rated quarterback. There have been people this week, not many, but a couple, who have pointed out, don't be surprised if the Giants take Shedeur Sanders at 3. Do I think it's happening? It doesn't sound like it, but I don't think it can be dismissed. And I know J-Mac brought up the possibility of the Saints, and it would make a lot of sense. And the Saints have had the longest drought of not picking a quarterback in the modern era of the common draft and haven't drafted one in the first round since they took Archie Manning in 1971. But the fact of the matter is, when you talk to people around the league, I don't think they believe the Saints are taking Shedeur Sanders. So if the Giants aren't taking Shedeur at 3, and if the Saints aren't taking Shedeur at 9, now let's start to think and wonder about where Shedeur Sanders is going to go in the, well, Laura, that is the spot that makes the most sense. Yeah. But would there be a team that jumps up in front of the Steelers? Do they value Shedeur Sanders enough to do that? Would the Giants go ahead and take him at 3? Because right now, it certainly feels like his range, which is a wide range, wider than most players in a draft, is 3 to 21, and I don't like the chances of him going 9. That's the way I think it's shaping up as we head a week out. And I also should add, I reserve the right to change my mind tomorrow, but that's where we certainly sound like we're at a week from today.
And that's the beauty of this, Adam. I think there is a wide range. In fact, I would put you on the spot here. I was going through all the drafts that I've covered, and you guys have all covered drafts, and Mina, of course. The last time there was this like complete non-consensus, I got to go back to Manziel in 2014, where it was like, Johnny could go 3 overall, or he could go out of the first round. And that's not us not having information. No one's more plugged in than Adam Schefter. We're telling you, the viewers, like, it could go a million directions, which is part of the intrigue of this draft. Where will Shedeur go?
Well, Peter, to your point, again, I've had people tell me the Giants aren't taking Shedeur at 3, and then I've had other people tell me, trust me, they're taking Shedeur at 3. So who is right in that particular case? And it always feels like there's a player or two every now and then that follows a similar trajectory. You brought up Johnny Manziel. I could think of Brady Quinn on a similar trajectory. I could think of one Aaron Rodgers on a similar trajectory. Geno Smith. So there have been other quarterbacks in other years that have had similar paths where they're discussed as a top quarterback. But let's not lose sight of the fact, again, he still remains the top-rated quarterback on Mel Kiper's board. He still looks like he's got the chance to have a very bright NFL career, and it just becomes the most intriguing storyline for 1 week from tonight.
The suspense is killing me. I can't wait to see what happens. I also think it's fascinating that Shedeur and Jalen Milroe and Tyler Shuck, they're all very different. It makes sense to do the due diligence, but when you're talking about a player like Jalen Milroe, I think we all agree it might take some time before he would actually play. Maybe the ceiling is the highest there, and Tyler Shuck could be the most ready of all 3. So we'll just continue to keep our eye on what the Giants are doing. Still to come here on NFL Live. The Jets, Panthers, and Falcons have the longest active playoff droughts in the NFL, but can one of them change their fortunes. Stay tuned for why Mina Kimes at the longest active playoff droughts in the NFL. The Jets now at 14 seasons, twice as long as the next closest two teams in the Panthers and Falcons. Gangrene's 14-season drought tied with the Buffalo Sabres for the longest active playoff drought across the NFL, NBA, NHL, and WNBA. Not great company. All right, so what should they do with the 7th overall pick, those Jets? The Jets have had no shortage of issues over their 14-season drought, but offensive line has certainly been a glaring one in recent years. Last season, New York ranked 23rd in pass block win rate, 29th in run block win rate. So, Jason, is there a player that you think the Jets should target to help their playoff drought?
Absolutely. Armand Membu coming out of Missouri. Go offensive line again after getting Olu Fashanu. Inserting him in the lineup last year for Tyron Smith was a big upgrade. Now you're getting a guy who's a big athlete who can move. And Aaron Glenn coming over from Detroit. You think about what they built their team on. It started up front with the offensive line and being able to run the ball. Solidify the big guys up front. Give Justin Fields some room to run, hand the ball off to those two backs you have, and let's see if this team can be a playoff team.
Great fit. I love it. Let's go to the Panthers. They're hoping to snap their seven-season drought in 2025, but they'll likely need to improve their defense to do it. Last season, Carolina ranked last in the league in opponent points per game, yards per play, and allowed the highest total QBR in the NFL. Not great. Peter, is there a player that you think can help fix some of those issues for Carolina?
I think Jalen Walker would be a fantastic addition. This is the son of a coach who has been wowing teams in his interviews, but it's not just his off-the-field leadership that's impressive. He did it all at Georgia. And, Laura, you would know this. 6.5 sacks, 29 pressures last year, can get to the quarterback, but is also used in a lot of different packages and can do stuff in coverage. So at 8 overall, you bring in a guy who can be a defensive captain someday and is a leader of a team on defense. I love that. Jalen Walker, 8 to Carolina, sounds like it makes a lot of sense to me.
You watched that Georgia film last year. He just popped off the screen. You couldn't take your eyes off of him. One of the biggest issues for the Falcons during the 7-season drought has been a lack of pass rush. And last season, that was clearly visible. Atlanta's defense ranked bottom of the league in sacks, pressure percentage, and pass rush win rate. Mina, is there a player you think that Atlanta should target to help those issues?
Well, I think you're hoping Jalen Walker falls and Carolina passes on him. But otherwise, I'm going to go with Mike Green, the pass rusher out of Marshall, led FBS with 17 sacks. Watch him on tape, you see why. Explosive first step, diverse set of pass rush moves, so bendy and flexible at the top of his arc. And he's an excellent finisher. That's how you get to that 17-sack figure. Falcons fans hear 17 sacks, and that feels like such a pipe dream based on how things have been in the last few years. I think he would go a long way towards improving that pass rush.
I love it. We got a lot more coming your way here on NFL Live. And in Cleveland, Hey, we're back on NFL Live. Earlier today, Aaron Rodgers joined the Pat McAfee show where he addressed a lot of the narratives he says are out there about him. No decision yet on his future, though. We're still waiting to get a little more clarity on that. The timeline seems to be never ending. But here's Rodgers earlier on where things stand specifically with the Steelers.
This entire time, I haven't felt like I owed anybody some sort of decision at any point. This is my life. Like I said, things are different now. My life is different. My personal life is different. I have stuff in the inner circle that intimately close to that it's really important to me. And I've been upfront with him about that and said, listen, if you need to move on, if you need to do something, by all means. I wanted to do due diligence with this whole process. And part of it is talking to a guy like DK. And let me just say this. What a great dude. What a great dude who loves football. And, I mean, what a specimen this guy is.
Okay, Adam, what more can you tell us about Rodgers' future?
Well, I think there are a couple of takeaways from today's conversation with Pat McAfee. I think the first is that he's not ready to make a decision. He's leaving all options on the table, whether he decides to come back and play in 25, which I still think is what most people believe ultimately will wind up happening, or whether he decides to retire and walk away. He himself said today he's got some significant issues with people in his life close to him, that matter to him, that obviously have demanded his attention during the offseason. So the Pittsburgh Steelers and any other team that could be waiting for Aaron Rodgers' services could be waiting for a bit while longer. It also seemed clear that he did not appreciate the way that the New York Jets handled the situation, him getting on a flight, crossing the country, only to be told that he was not wanted back in New York in 15 or so minutes, and having to fly when he felt like he could have been told that conversation over the phone and spared himself the expense of having to travel to New York. But the Jets also did do a lot for him during the 2 years. They got him most every player he wanted, paid him a lot of money, didn't get the return they wanted. So, again, I'm sure both sides not happy with the way this relationship wound up.
Two sides to every story. All right, we're just 1 week away from the NFL draft. Travis Hunter, coming off a historic Heisman Trophy winning season, he became the first player in Big 12 history to rank top 10 in the conference in touchdown receptions and interceptions. And he ranked top 3 in both last season. Just truly remarkable. Here's what Browns GM Andrew Berry had to say about Hunter and his ability to play both sides of the ball.
We wouldn't necessarily put a cap or a governor in terms of like what he could do. We would want to be smart in terms of how we started him out. I think I've mentioned before, we would see his first home as receiver and his second home, on the defense side of the ball. That's a little bit like Ohtani, right? Where, when he's playing one side, he's an outstanding player. If he's a pitcher or he's a hitter, he's an outstanding player. You obviously get a unicorn if you use them both ways.
So normally I feel like if someone makes a Shohei Ohtani comparison, I'd be like, that's a little rich.
Yeah.
Not in this case, because Travis Hunter truly is that remarkable. He truly is that good. So how, Jason, do you think teams should use Hunter at the next level? And maybe specifically the Browns, who have that number 2 pick, and it kind of just feels like we're trending that direction.
I mean, when you start throwing out around the word unicorn, you got to play him at both positions. I think he'll start on the offensive side of the ball. You heard Andrew Berry say that they see him as a wide receiver. Him aligned with Jerry Jeudy and Cedric Tillman gives them a very formidable wide receiver core. And I look at the challenge for him to play both sides of the ball. It comes to the language and the terminology. That's the biggest step. When you're playing and you're in offensive meetings all the time, how in the world are you going to know what's going on the defensive side of the ball? You need translators. And the beauty about that, when you have safeties and nickels and different guys around you that can communicate with you, hey, you weren't in meetings this morning, but I got you. This is what we're doing in this situation, in this formation. I think he's going to have the ability to do both of them. It's going to start at the wide receiver spot if it's in Cleveland, because he'll be dynamic with the ball in his hands, and it's going to help whoever's lined up under center for the Browns.
He's my cornerback 1 and my wide receiver 1 in this draft, but I think for him to hit his ceiling in the NFL, he's going to have to focus on one position, especially early on in his career. And for that reason, guys, I actually think it's part of the reason why I think cornerback is ideal, because in addition to his frame being a little bit better suited for that position, his ball skills making him so unique as a corner. Jason, you know this. It's a lot easier to be a corner and to give him 10 plays as a receiver and dropping him packages than to play him at receiver and be like, cool, you know everything we do on defense, the coverages, the adjustments, that offense, you study them, right? Like, that is not easy for a young player. And so I'd be a little bit worried about doing that side versus the reverse, which is easier.
He is very good, and he is incredible at what he's doing. And it is also going to be unprecedented once he gets drafted, because there has been no true two-way player since Roy Green did it for the 1981 St. Louis Cardinals. Played safety and played wide receiver. And we've seen Champ Bailey used on offense. We've seen Dion used on. I'm talking about a true, full-time two-way player, and I think Travis Hunter can do it. I honestly do. And I spoke to a GM this week. I said, all right, break down his wide receiver. He hasn't even started scratching the surface as a wide receiver.
Wow.
He's the wide receiver 1 in this draft, and he is as raw as you can get for a prospect like this. What he does when the ball hits his hands, it is unlike anything we've seen, and he's still, technique and fundamentals-wise, isn't even there yet. So imagine the ability to throw him in there, and let's say he's wide receiver 2 to Malik Neighbors in New York or Jerry Jeudy in Cleveland, and you have him as defensive back 1. Now, I understand there's a huge learning curve, and we're so cautious. If I'm those two teams and I'm drafting you 3rd overall or 2nd overall, hey, buddy, we're not drafting you there to do both. Like, go, let's do it.
And he wants to.
And he wants
it's
to.
so important to him.
I love this prospect because we have been doing this for a long time, and I don't think there's been a true two-way player since I've been covering the draft.
Well, let me get this straight. Travis Hunter is Mina's #1 cornerback, #1 wide receiver. We heard the Browns general manager, Andrew Berry, say today that this is the NFL version of Shohei Ohtani. We heard him say he's a unicorn. So if we've got all these things, you tell me how the Cleveland Browns are bypassing the unicorn Ohtani at the number 2 overall pick. And Andrew Berry himself said today that they would start him out at wide receiver and work him in at cornerback. So it certainly sounds like he's going to be catching passes this year from Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett, whatever quarterback the Browns take in round 2, or if they come up in round 1. It certainly sounds like Travis Hunter is going to be going to Cleveland. Hey, I'll throw this out. What if the Browns take Travis Hunter at 2
Let's go.
and then somehow climb back into the first round and take
Hazelnut, meat chocolate, crispy, meat creamy, irresistibly bueno.
another quarterback?
Shedeur,
I mean, that would be
Jackson
interesting,
Dart.
too.
We did a mock draft earlier. I shouldn't say we. Field Yates did a mock draft earlier this week where he had him climbing back into that first and grabbing Jackson Dart, which I said if they do that, I would almost give them an A+ grade, at least in the early part
I'd give
of
him
the
an
draft.
A+ to resist drafting Shedeur, to Adam's point, and say you could keep those guys together. Hey, what's Dion doing on those Sundays if you've got Shedeur and Travis Hunter in the same NFL city? Is he going straight from Boulder to Cleveland? Is there a private flight? I hope
With
so.
the dog pound.
That's it.
Didn't Dion say after the Colorado Showcase Day that he thought that at least one of them would wind up in Cleveland?
He
Can
did.
you imagine
Hey,
if
Dion,
the Browns made some bold move to trade up to get Shedeur and they both were in Cleveland? Wow,
Dion
that
played
would be
baseball
exciting.
and football on the same day, or at least attempted to. Now he'll be at college and NFL on the same weekend every weekend. Okay, let's go.
I love it. I think, listen, okay, so now we've decided this is happening, and we'll see if it actually happens. It's a week away. This first round of the NFL draft begins. We've got a lot more coming your way here on NFL Live. Don't go anywhere. And this is what's next. Look at this. Lee Corso announcing today that he is going to do his last College Game Day show. The legend, of course, his final show will be in week 1 of the 2025 season. Corso has been with College Game Day since the show first aired in 1987. He's made exactly 430 headgear selections since the segment was introduced back in 1995. Let's take a look back at some of the best moments.
You know what you want? You want a connection. Connection with people, and nobody has done that better than you have.
Right.
There is only one Lee Corso.
Not so fast. Forget about it. Forget about it. Forget about it.
Not tonight, sweetheart. Give me that hand.
I know you're crazy.
You're dead right.
This is strictly business.
That dog is ugly.
Off comes the headset, on goes the headgear, and the crowd goes crazy.
He's the godfather of college football.
Thanks to the fans for having so much fun with me.
You honestly can't think about college football without thinking about Lee Corso. And Adam, what will you remember most about Corso's career?
Well, you heard there, the godfather of college football, a man who worked almost 4 decades for ESPN, who helped turn in putting on headgear into one of the biggest traditions in college football. If you can establish something like that over 4 years and be as beloved and respected as Lee Corso is on that College Game Day set and to every college campus he visits every single week, you know you had a legendary career, and Lee Corso certainly did.
Absolutely iconic. For me, being at Rodgers, we're an underdog in darn near every game we played in. And you were hoping that game day came to your school, and all you wanted to see was Lee Corso put on that Scarlet Night. And I think about from being a kid to playing in college to then playing in the pros, waking up on Saturday morning and watching College Game Day. And a lot of that was to see Lee Corso.
He's college football to me, like universally beloved, but those Saturday mornings, whether it was when we were in college or when we were in our 20s, 30s, 40s, you turn it on, you can't not smile seeing Lee Corso's face, the energy and enthusiasm. And being new to ESPN here, no one has ever said a foul word about him, and it seems like this guy is truly the real deal. If anything, I'm just so happy that we overlap a little bit, and I can say I was his colleague.
Man, I got to say today, just seeing all the outreach from everybody, the pouring out of love to Corso, it's so well-deserved. He has been so kind to all of us. I think that's what we're all so thankful for. And, of course, you'll see his final show at the beginning of next college football season. All right, still to come. NFC West had 3 teams make the playoffs, and the Chiefs, Chargers, and Broncos tied with the NFC North for the most by any division in the NFL. The Broncos made the playoffs for the first time since winning Super Bowl 50, and a big reason for that was the play of their rookie quarterback, Bo Nix. The 12th overall pick in last year's draft threw 29 touchdowns, the second most by a rookie in NFL history, behind only Justin Herbert in 2020. Here's Sean Payton on how Denver is trying to help their young quarterback in next week's draft.
There's 2 great allies that I think for quarterback play, to help quarterback play. It's real good defense and obviously a real good running game. Look, they'll be focused on the running back position. It's a pretty good draft for running backs. Depending on where you're at and what you need, there is a point where we feel like we can get a similar player at this portion of the first round that you might be able to get maybe 7 picks up, and you might be able to get 7 picks into the second.
I'm reading between the lines there, and he's like, man, we're not going to be able to get Ashton Genty because he won't still be there. But who else is close? Maybe Omari and Hampton. Mina, what do you think the Broncos need to do to improve their roster in this draft?
Yeah, I mean, shoot, Sean kind of did some of my analysis there, talking about how deep the running back class is. That said, I do think Hampton is he's my second running back after Genty, and I do think there's a break between him and the next group of backs, the Ohio State backs. So I do think that would be a good pick for them. But I would love for the Broncos to add to their receiving group, where they're picking in the draft a player who I think is going to be there, who would be a terrific fit, Emeka Egbuka out of Ohio State, slot receiver, yards after the catch weapon. He's a weapon, by the way. He was used a number of ways, backfield jet sweeps, things Peyton would like to do with him. He's a good blocker. He's just such a nice complementary piece to Cortland Sutton, and he's super quarterback-friendly player. So I would love him with a young quarterback like Bo Nix.
It feels like Sean Payton has been looking for a joker on his offense for quite some time. I remember when they played the Detroit Lions, and the Lions had Jahmyr Gibbs and Sam Laporta go up against Denver, and the Broncos organization looking at those two players saying, where do we get ourselves a Jahmyr Gibbs or a Sam Laporta, somebody that could do any number of roles in our offense? Now, I don't know whether that's going to be a running back or a wide receiver or even a tight end, even after they signed Evan Ingram. But I do know that they would love to add that one chess piece that Sean Payton would be able to deploy on Sundays to help last year's first-round pick Bo Nix take the next step in his development as a young standout quarterback, and somewhere along the way, early on, they're going to find a joker for that offense.
I love it. I was talking to our draft analyst, Field Yates, earlier today, and just commenting on the depth of this draft at so many positions, to the point where all these coaches and GMs are salivating over the opportunities to make their rosters better at multiple spots. Let's see about staying in the AFC West. The Chargers also had a big bounce back year in their first season with Jim Harbaugh as the head coach. A big reason for that was a change in team philosophy. In 2023, the Chargers ranked bottom of the league in designed rush percentage and opponent points per game. Last season, they ranked top 10 in both, including first in scoring defense. Here's GM Joe Horitz on the latest with the Bolts.
I wouldn't call it anxious, excitement, opportunity. You know, we're getting ready to, like I said, I feel like we did a really good job in free agency, really addressing a lot of needs on our team. And I feel like we could go out and play a game tomorrow and be damn good in that game. But we have a chance to add 10 more players through the draft and additional players post-draft, and undrafted free agents, and then free agency after the draft. Free agency never ends, as you guys know, as we showed. But it's just excitement.
Peter, what do you think the Chargers need to prioritize in the draft to take that next step in year 2 under Harbaugh?
The draft projections are an art and a science. You could say, here's what this team needs, and here's how I would do it. Or you look at team tendencies and say, well, here's what they've historically done. Joe Ortiz comes from the Baltimore Ravens, where for 20 years he was part of that Ozzie Newsome, Eric DaCosta front office, where they would take guys from Alabama and Notre Dame and big. Last year in his first draft, do you want to hear the first 5 picks where these guys came out of? Joe Alt was out of Notre Dame. McConkey's out of Georgia. Junior Colson's out of Michigan. They have another Bama one, another Notre Dame, another USC. I would look at the big school blue bloods for the Chargers. They're not looking under a rock to find some crazy product. They want to see guys who have done it, who are ready, and who are going to be pros. Position-wise, I know they brought in Najee Harris. I still think that offense, knowing what Harbaugh likes to do, and it's pound the ball and be the biggest, baddest team out there, I wouldn't be shocked if you saw a running back there at 22, especially with how good this class is. I would look at Judkins out of Ohio State, who's a bigger back, was a star at Ole Miss, star at Ohio State, has done it. I think that would be a really good 1-2 combo out there in L.A.
I love that. For the Chargers, you kind of look at it as, do you get somebody to help Justin Herbert, a running back, a tight end, a guy like Lovelace coming out of Michigan, a guy that can get down the middle of the field? Do you get him a weapon on the outside? Similar to the conversation that surrounds Bo Nix. When you have a quarterback, you want to surround them with weapons. But also for the Chargers, they lost out on their nose tackle, Poona Ford, who left to go to the Rams. Do you try to replace him and get a big guy up front to solidify and continue to have that defense build? For me, I look at it as when you have a quarterback, you have Justin Herbert, and you saw the playoff performance against the Houston Texans. Give him another weapon on the outside. Give him a Matthew Golden, a guy that can take the top off the defense. If Tedero McMillan is there, a big target to get the ball to on the outside. As much as you can help your quarterback take that next step of winning a playoff game is what we all want to see Justin Herbert do. You'd love to see that.
Even though Matthew Golden has maybe slipped a little.
Seeing our mom go through all these difficulties with Parkinson's just kind of hurts us to the core.
CVS Specialty Pharmacy supports me as a caregiver. There's a person behind that phone, behind that medicine.
Liberty. Liberty Mutual is all she talks about since we saved hundreds by bundling our home and auto insurance.
Liberty. It's pronounced Biberty.
Liberty.
Biberty.
Liberty.
Nice try, kid. Only pay for what you need.
Liberty, liberty, liberty. Liberty.
A little bit ahead of Tedero McMillan in the weeks here before the draft. McMillan is still the number one receiver on a lot of people's boards. All right, coming up, Lions GM Brad Holmes has a knack for finding Pro Bowlers. Maybe he's looking under some of those rocks. I don't know. But will that trend continue in this year's draft? Find out why J-Mac says Detroit shouldn't be drafting solely off need. That's on the other side of this break. We'll be right back. NFL Live continues right here on ESPN. Wave at him, Peter.
Let's go.
Hey, Mom. Draft prime smokescreen season, okay, as we've already seen today. And Peter Schragers is here to tell us 3 things that could happen next Thursday.
All right, here's my first thing. Read the mock drafts, have fun. Like, don't take it as it's scripture. Things are going to happen, and you're like, whoa, what? Here are 3 things that could happen that you're not seeing anywhere else. Number 1, Tet McMillan, also known as T-Mac, the polarizing wide receiver out of Arizona. I think he could still go before Ashton Genty in the draft, who is everyone's all-world Heisman runner-up, best running back you've ever seen. This guy's 6'4" and has a lot of fans in the league who are comparing him to Mike Evans. He is the #1 wide receiver all season long, and yet his draft stock has just been sliding down. Based on what? Based on the film? Somewhat. Some people think he takes some plays off, and there's some questions about his passion. But the good is great. And with wide receiver being pretty thin this year at the top, I wouldn't be shocked if a wide receiver hungry team took this man over this man, despite a very different amount of literature being written about the 2 players. Who's this? This is Armand Membu. You don't have an Armand Membu jersey at home. No one does. He's out of Missouri. He's an offensive lineman, and yet everybody is projecting Will Campbell, the stud offensive tackle out of LSU, to go first. Membu is your classic high riser with the athletic stuff that everyone loves. His measurables, insane. Played in the SEC, played against some top talent, and yet everyone's just assuming, just put the LSU guy there. That's what it is. Membu has a lot of fans in the league, and though his name might not be as famous as Campbell, we've seen it time and time before. Those freak combine workouts, they actually play a role. And last but not least, I say this and I cringe because I don't know the reaction from the media or from Dion or whoever else, but there is a chance that Shedeur is not the second quarterback taken, just a chance. Now, personally, on my board, he's a top 2 quarterback. But knowing that this thing is a lot like Baskin-Robbins and that there's 31 flavors, there are GMs who might like the speed of Jalen Milroe more, or a GM who likes the pure throwing ability of Tyler Shuck more, or the moxie of Jackson Dartmoor. I would just say this. Enjoy the mock drafts. Have a blast with them. I'll do my own. Tear it apart. It is not scripture. There are still plenty of things that can happen between now and 7 days away.
I'll show you his first day.
Whoa. I'm just kidding.
He's taking us all the way to break. He's not giving me any time to react. I think Membu's the most likely to happen, but the one that's going to give me that Peter Schrager face up there in the corner is going to be if Shedeur Sanders doesn't end up.
That face right there, I take great offense. That is a smug face. That is an arrogant smug. I'm not arrogant.
That's Pete Schrager's, guys.
That's your new headshot here at ESPN.
Okay,
We're putting it on your company badge.
Smug, mean, arrogant, and telling you that everything that you've read is wrong.
I love it. One thing that probably will happen is the Lions will have a good draft. Since taking over as the Lions GM in 2021, arguably no one has been been better at drafting talent than Brad Holmes. Over that span, he selected 6 players that have earned at least 1 Pro Bowl selection. Jahmyr Gibbs, Sam Laporta, Brian Branch, Aiden Hutchinson, Penei Sewell, Amon-Ra St. Brown. It's a who's who. That's the most of any team in the NFL since 2021. Holmes gave an interesting analogy today on what he thinks about the draft.
You're always trying to figure out what we're going to do. I don't like when like a movie comes out, right? Like, I don't understand. When you go to see a movie, you don't know what the movie, you've never seen the movie. That's the excitement. And so you're fine just watching the movie. And it is whether the movie's good or bad, and then you can do that. But I don't understand why people can't just watch the draft. And it's like, all right, like, I don't know what's going to happen, but watch the draft and get your popcorn ready and enjoy it. You know what I mean?
That's spoken like a man who's had a lot of success in the draft. Yeah. Okay, Mina, the Lions had a great regular season last year, but they did fall short in the playoffs. Where do they need to improve to try and get over the hump?
Yeah, no mystery here. Pass rush is the biggest need. You saw that in the second half of the season after Aiden Hutchinson went down. The lack of depth they had rushing the quarterback really exposed them, forced Aaron Glenn to blitz on like every other down. So that's something they've got to address. I think where they're picking at the end of the draft, you're looking at players like Donovan Ezeraku, very technically refined pass rusher and productive one out of Boston College. Maybe a James Pierce Jr. who's got the athletic tools but not quite the polish and consistency out of Tennessee. The other reason I think they need to add a pass rusher is I expect Aiden Hutchinson to come back strong, and they're going to have to pay him soon. So you're going to have to get cheaper elsewhere at that position. There's going to be an opportunity for them to do so in the draft.
I love the James Pierce Jr. coming out of Tennessee, talking about his explosion and his speed rush. I think that marries up perfect with a guy like Aiden Hutchinson on the other side who has a motor that just doesn't stop. And both of these guys have the ability to bull rush and walk your tackles back to the quarterback. I would love to see him there, especially with his first step and his get off. I look at this Lions team, and to Mina's point, you had everything you needed to win all of those regular season games. It's just about those small little details of being able to get over a hump. A guys like James Pierce Jr. to be able to have that level of pass rush late into the season to be able to get those wins when they need it most, I think he would be perfect fit for the Detroit Lions.
This is a general manager who, in an era where no one values running back and no one values inside linebackers, spent 2 top 20 picks on Jahmyr Gibbs and Jack Campbell 2 years ago. He's not reading the mock drafts. He's not reading our boards. This is one of those teams at 28. They're going to take the player that they like the most. I don't think they have a glaring need. This is best player available, and it can come from any position, and it'll be who falls to them. Last year, Terrion Arnold was their pick, and that was not a great position of need for them as they had a very deep defensive backfield.
That was a fun moment, too, in Detroit. The hometown people finally got to cheer for a draft pick. All right, Peter, your very first NFL Live is over. What did you think? How did it go?
It was great. I loved it. I'm going to cry. It was fantastic. Hopefully, I informed and entertained and didn't offend anybody. That's all I said.
Please don't
cry. I
cry.
don't know about the last part. No, I'm just kidding. No, it was great to have you, and you'll be with us a lot more, certainly. So we appreciate you for joining us. And go break apart his list online.
Yeah. When's the mock draft? When's the mock draft coming?
Next week.
Okay, next week.
Next week.
Yo, what's going on out there, peoples? Appreciate you guys for making it this far. I am your host, S. Dot, and if you have made it this far, you've made it to your Sports Minute, where we chop it up about the world of sports. Let's just say sports is a great thing to talk about. And right now, we have a topic on this discussion where your boy Aaron Rodgers has held the Steelers captive for him to come out and say these crazy things that he came out his mouth and said. Like I said, we appreciate you guys for making it this far. First of all, before we get into it, don't forget to hit that like, don't forget to hit that subscribe, and most of all, please let your voice be heard and leave a comment. All right, so let's jump into it. Peter Schrager on Aaron Rodgers' future. You got Stephen A. out here saying that Aaron Rodgers should retire. You got I think it's CC. I think that's what they call him. You got him out here saying that Aaron Rodgers is a weirdo. Man, this type of stuff has never been seen before. I told y'all in the beginning of this whole thing that Aaron Rodgers was a diva. He was a diva. And he has no respect for the league, man. He definitely has no respect for the Steelers. I mean, when your boy, I forgot the, Pat McAfee, when he came out and he asked the question about, when he came out and asked Aaron Rodgers, do you feel like you owe the Steelers some type of explanation for taking them this far and making them feel like they were going to get you on the team? And then he asked, do you think that the Steelers would be a place that you would go to starting at the beginning of the season? Do you think the Steelers, organization is where you want to play? How about this man went into, a whole bunch of rambling and a whole bunch of nonsense that didn't even answer the question, because it was basically him saying, hell no, I don't want to go to the Steelers. It's basically him coming out saying, no, I'm not going to the Steelers, and that's that. But he didn't want to come out and say it directly. He said he's been honest with teams. He said he's been informative, keeping the communication lines open. But then when he's asked directly on the McAfee show, so the fans can get a direct answer, he comes out and say, well, like I stated, blah, 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 blah. That's all I heard. I don't know what you guys have heard, but that's exactly what I heard him say. It was a blah, 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 a hell no, blah, 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 another hell no, and a blah, blah, hell no, is what I heard Aaron Rodgers say about going to the Steelers, and if it was possible. You guys let me know what you think about it in the comments, man. Let your voice be heard. This is a topic that we can talk about infinite. I mean, it's a lot of things that can be said on this subject about Aaron. But what I want to do is I want to hear from you guys, man. Let me know what you think about this. I'm asking you guys this question. First of all, do you think Aaron Rodgers is wrong for dragging the Steelers out this long before he publicly made this announcement? And do you guys think he's still going to go to the Steelers, or is he even going to play football? Period. That is the question to you guys out there. So go ahead and hit the comments up, man. Let me know how you feel about that. All right? And we'll keep you posted on the Aaron Rodgers situation. But moving on to the next subject, bro. All right. Next on the chopping block, we got should look at me saying Aaron. Should Shedeur Sanders or Travis Hunter be drafted by the Giants? Right now, the Giants quarterback roster is showing to have Russell Wilson, Jameis Winston, and Tommy DeVito. What can somebody please tell me where the hell Shedeur is going to play at with all of these quarterbacks already in these positions? I mean, if he goes to the Giants, I guarantee you they're going to sit him. They're going to sit him until Russell Wilson proves that Russell Wilson isn't what he used to be. Then they may throw Jameis Winston in there, and Jameis Winston, he's a baller. You know what I'm saying? But Jameis, I don't know. Y'all tell me how y'all feel about the situation. Where do you think Shedeur, or first question is, where do you think Shedeur would stack up with all three of these quarterbacks already being on the Giants roster? And how would that play out in a regular season, between who would start, who would back up the starter, and so on and so forth? Now, moving on to Travis Hunter, we don't have to worry about that with Travis Hunter. He's going to definitely play. He wants to play both positions. He wants to come out there and play wide receiver and on the defensive side of the ball. That's a hell of a player, man. And then he's putting out there, he doesn't want to even be drafted unless a team allows him to play on both sides of the ball. That's freaking dope, man. I mean, come on. You got a player coming out of college, winning the Heisman Trophy, doing what he did. He's going to be the first pick. And he's telling teams, I want to play both sides of the ball. You know what I mean? Because I have that much talent in me that much confidence in my game where I could play offense, score touchdowns, and then play defense and snatch interceptions. That's pretty dope to me, man. I mean, Travis Hunter is definitely a unicorn. I mean, I'm at a loss for words, bro. Like, you have to be on another level to understand what type of player that is. I mean, football is not a soft sport, especially going to the NFL, where you're playing with these grown-ass men like the Philadelphia Eagles front four, where nobody is under 6'5", and nobody's under 300 pounds. Like, that's scary, man. You know what I'm saying? Imagine getting hit by one of them mugs. That would not be pretty. But yeah, man, let me know how you guys feel about it in this subject. Who do you got? And how do you have them stacking up on the Giants roster if they do draft Shedeur Sanders? And like I stated, man, we appreciate everything you guys have done. We appreciate all the subscriptions. We appreciate all the likes. But most of all, we really, really, really appreciate all the comments, man. We like to hear you guys chop it up because sports is one thing that relieves stress and people can go ahead and get stuff off of their chest. You know what I'm saying? When you talk sports, it's a heavy debate, but it's a friendly debate. You know what I mean? So y'all go ahead and keep it smooth out there, man. And like I stated, I'm your boy S. Dot, and we'll catch y'all on the next round. All right? Peace.